I think there's an interesting piece of hypocrisy to point out with regards to this, and specifically King Charles. I have to get used to saying King Charles now, who has just given his royal assent to new laws in the UK that okay the idea of gene-edited foods being unlabeled and undifferentiable from normal foods. He has just given his royal assent to that, despite the fact that King Charles not only was the person who literally launched the Great Reset. When the World Economic Forum had their launch party, it was King Charles who did that launch and was the first speaker.
The time to act is now.
To announce the Great Reset to the world. But King Charles goes around the world jet-setting, of course flying his private jets with all of his attendants. He has something like 120 staff who look after everything, including setting the bath temperature just the right way and putting the bath plug in just the right position, cooking several different eggs for him every morning so he can find one with just the right consistency, traveling around with his own personal toilet seat, all of course the stupid royal nonsense. But also, he travels around with not only his personal chefs, but his personal food supply, which is organic food only, because he will not touch the very stuff that he's trying to foist on the rest of us. But don't worry, guys. As part of One Health and as part of UNEP, quadripartite, whatever they're going to thrust down your throat, they're going to say that this is in the name of protecting Mother Earth from those horrible, horrible farms that are producing all this horrible greenhouse gas emissions. You guys are eating meat. Oh, you're eating all these horrible. You're contributing to the end of nature. What you need is this bioengineered, lab-produced gunk from these corporations that monopolize that industry. That's what's good for you. Just don't look to us to be eating it. No, that's for you guys, the plebs out there. Anyone who's not disgusted, truly disgusted by the hypocrisy of this agenda, truly isn't paying attention to it. It has nothing to do with saving the planet.
Recently, I fear we have reached a most sobering milestone in this seemingly interminable campaign, as we mark the tragic loss of 100,000 souls. It is clear that the virus is affecting all parts of the country and all sections of society. But it is also clear that there are particular challenges faced in particular sections of our society, especially in some ethnic minority communities. What saddens me even further is to hear that those challenges are being made even worse by the variable uptake of the vaccines, which finally offer us a way out of the suffering of the past year. Recently, I fear we have reached a most sobering milestone in this seemingly interminable campaign, as we marked the tragic loss of...
Briefing on our good news this morning.
I think it's a really exciting result. I mean, we've got an overall 70% protection against the virus, but we had no one who was vaccinated, went into hospital, or had severe disease, which I think that's going to translate into actually preventing this clogging up of the NHS that we've seen.
Well done. I'm so pleased for all of you guys. I really am. I saw it in everyone's faces back in June, how much time and effort was going into this. It's an amazing achievement, isn't it? It really is. Huge congratulations to you all and your teams.
Prevent and control viral. The Pirbright Institute aims to prevent and control viral diseases of livestock and those that spread from animals to people. The Institute, which receives funding from the Biotechnology and Biological Sciences Research Council, BBSRC, part of UK Research and Innovation, is constantly monitoring viral infections of livestock globally and provides the UK with its capability to prevent and contain highly infectious viral diseases of livestock, such as foot and mouth disease and African swine fever. Pirbright has the most advanced diagnostic platforms available for immediate use to test for these viruses.
Since the 2009 H1N1 swine flu pandemic, Pirbright has been developing tools and reagents to monitor antibody and T-cell responses in pigs to be able to test human vaccines. Because of this underpinning research, we were in a position to test the COVID-19 human vaccines in pigs. We found robust antibody and T-cell responses are induced, and that giving a second injection as a boost greatly increases the antibody responses to the Oxford human vaccine. We can access larger sample volumes from pigs compared to mice, primates, or even humans. Therefore, by working every day for long hours, our scientists have been able to develop a range of antibody and T-cell assays in a very short space of time, about 6 to 8 weeks. The results from pigs will not give the final answer whether the vaccines will work. That will need studies in humans. But using the pig model, we can help identify the minimum dose of vaccine required and the effect of different ways of delivering the vaccine to hopefully provide a focus in future human studies. We are now using these antibody assays to test samples from the human COVID-19 vaccine studies.
But that single example vividly illustrates the benefits that Oxford could bring on a local, national and global scale. Trinity College presents the university at a human scale, and the work of your academics, as we have seen, is making a real difference to people's lives. I can only congratulate you all on the vital work you do and the generosity of spirit that underpins it. To finally get here. Anyway, when I really, well, as an alumnus, I must tell you, of the other, slightly older in East Anglia, I really am delighted to share this very special moment for this Trinity College, which I'm reliably reminded I visited 17 years ago. So it's a great joy to come back again. Apart from any of Oxford's international profile, rivals that of any university in the world, highlighted by the breadth and depth of its research collaborations and a truly global student body and academic staff. And I must say, I much enjoyed the performance we just heard. I was so impressed, and I feel awful that you were kept waiting outside, wondering if I was ever going to turn up. But it was wonderful to hear about all your aspirations, apart from anything else. But the impact of its work, Oxford, was never more apparent, I think, than during the past 2 years when Oxford scientists produced a vaccine to combat COVID-19 in an extraordinary race against the clock, and made this vital vaccine available at cost through its partnership with AstraZeneca, whose headquarters I opened in November last year in another city than
absolutely no chance there. So thank you very much for this marvellous award. We're going to pass it round.
The Duke of Sussex.
Good evening to everyone in London. Thank you to GQ for hosting tonight's awards ceremony and to Johnny for the kind introduction. It's not often that one gets the chance to wear a tuxedo at 3 p.m, unless of course it's from the night before, but well, here we are. I'm deeply honoured to be introducing our final awardees, who you'll immediately recognise for their landmark contribution to the fight against COVID-19. Our heroes of this evening are Professor Sarah Gilbert, Dr. Catherine Green, and the entire team of dedicated Oxford scientists. Their breakthrough research on the Oxford vaccine has brought the world one of the greatest tools for achieving vaccine equity. They also approach their mission with a humanitarian urgency. In April of last year, the Oxford team packed up a shipment of research cultures and stealthily sent it to India, an early example of the biotech collaboration we need to bring this global crisis to an end. Until every community can access the vaccine and until every community is connected to trustworthy information about the vaccine, then we are all at risk. That's a common refrain that my wife and I have heard in convenings with vaccine experts, heads of industry, community advocates, and global leaders. As people sit in the room with you tonight, more than a third of the global population has received at least one dose of the vaccine. That's more than 5 billion shots given around the world so far. And it sounds like a major accomplishment, and in many ways it is. But there is a huge disparity between who can and cannot access the vaccine. Less than 2% of people in the developing world have received a single dose at this point. And many of the healthcare workers are still not vaccinated. We cannot move forward together unless we address this imbalance as one. At the same time, families around the world are being overwhelmed by mass-scale misinformation across news media and social media, where those who peddle in lies and fear are creating vaccine hesitancy, which in turn is dividing communities and eroding trust. This is a system we need to break if we are to overcome COVID-19 and the risk of new variants. The Oxford team have done their part. They are heroes of the highest order who gave us an instrument to fight this disease. They are our nation's pride, and we are deeply indebted to their service. For the rest of us, including global governments, pharmaceutical leaders, and heads of business, we have to keep doing our part. That must include sharing vaccine science and supporting and empowering developing countries with more flexibility. Where you're born should not affect your ability to survive, when the drugs and know-how exist to keep you alive and well. Thank you again to Professor Gilbert and Dr. Green, who The Guardian called two ordinary people who managed to pull off an extraordinary feat while dealing with the everyday stresses that come with being full-time mums and breadwinners in a notoriously insecure and poorly paid field. But tonight, we're not honoring two ordinary people. These are two exceptional people with a remarkable team who are a bulwark of humanity. Please welcome to the stage Dame Sarah Gilbert, Catherine Green, Emma Bolam, Ian Poulton, Laura Walker, Mwila Kasanyinga, Wendy Crocker, Lisa Stockdale, Jamie Fowler, and Saeed Adlu.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I promised Sarah I wouldn't get too pissed. So we're all right. I always promised her we wouldn't swear. But Jesus, we're so fucking starstruck. There's
people are confused or sometimes don't know what to think or believe about vaccines. We are experiencing a viral pandemic alongside a digital pandemic. In today's world, we are so connected, like a vast nervous system, whether we're online or not. And much like the virus, there are no borders online. So when vaccine misinformation and disinformation spreads, magnified on social media and in parts of traditional media, it exposes a collective threat to humanity. I believe that misinformation is a global humanitarian crisis, and the crisis is getting worse.
Had the vaccine, you have a feeling of, you're protected. Well, once you've had the vaccine, you have a feeling of, you're protected, which is, I think, very important. And as far as I can make out, it was quite harmless. It was very quick. And I've had lots of letters from people who've been very surprised by how easy it was to get the vaccine. And the jab was it didn't hurt at all.
We hope everyone who is offered the vaccine will take it up, because it is all of our best chances to protect both the people who take up the vaccine, their families and their communities.
I think the other thing is that it is obviously difficult for people to, if they've never had a vaccine, because they ought to think about other people rather than themselves. Well, once you've had the vaccine, you have a feeling of...
What we want to make sure is, keeping the lines free for people who need care. So your NHS will contact you when you need the vaccine. When it's your turn, please come and get it. We do have vaccine hesitancy in some groups, Your Royal Highness. It's really important to kind of really get into communities, ethnically diverse communities, more deprived communities, to say, this is your vaccine as well. It's for everyone. It's not just for some communities. So getting that uptake is really important. And while we're waiting to get everybody vaccinated, the vast majority of the country is vaccinated, to keep following social distancing guidelines, because actually we're not going to suddenly be in a position where we can hug all the people we want to. It's going to take a bit of time. So being able to reinforce those messages are really important.
My grandparents have had the vaccine, and I'm very proud of them for doing that. So it's really important that everyone gets their vaccine when they're told to. So thank you so much. I've got to let you guys go because I know how busy you are. Thank you so much for chatting to me. I really appreciate it. And just a huge congratulations to all of you for playing your part in such a monumental moment, frankly, to roll out this vaccine. I think it's a hugely proud moment for the NHS and for the UK being able to achieve such a massive task. And good luck to all of you, and look after yourselves in the... Catherine and I are not medical experts by any means, but if it's any consolation, we can wholeheartedly support, having vaccinations. It's really, really important. We've spoken to a lot of people about it, and the uptake's been amazing so far. We've got to keep it going so that the younger generations also feel, that it's really important for them to have it.
It must be really daunting, especially at the beginning, with the warnings out there for those with asthma and underlying health conditions and things like that, with the uncertainty of not knowing what it was about the pandemic that was going to be a sort of a threat or a complication. Social media is awash sometimes with lots of rumours and misinformation, so we have to be a little bit careful who we believe and where we get our information from. But especially for those who are clinically vulnerable as well, it's so important that those vaccinations are done. I bet everyone's like, I'm not does it seem quite dramatic right now? It's being a little bit hamped up, you think? By the way, Dutch game is just running for sorry. So we're keeping an eye on that. So do tell us if we get stopped. I bet everyone's like, I'm not does it seem quite dramatic right now? It's being a little bit hamped up, you think? By the way, Dutch game is just running for sorry. So we're keeping an eye on that. So do tell us if we get stopped. I bet everyone's like, I'm not does it seem quite dramatic right now? It's being a little bit hamped up, you think?
a spokesperson at Clarence House. The Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, has coronavirus. Prince Charles, who of course is over 70 and therefore in the most at-risk group, has coronavirus. We have a statement now from Clarence House, just in. It says, the Prince of Wales has tested positive for coronavirus. He's been displaying mild symptoms, but otherwise remains in good health and has been working from home throughout the last few days. As usual, the Duchess of Cornwall has also been tested, but does not have the virus. In accordance with government and medical advice, the Prince and Duchess are now self-isolating at home in Scotland. The tests were carried out by the NHS in Aberdeenshire, where they met the criteria required for testing, obviously because they're in that age group. It is not possible to ascertain from whom the Prince caught the virus, owing to the high number of engagements he carried out in his public role during recent weeks. And we understand that royal correspondents are going to be briefed further on the situation. So the Prince of Wales and his consort Camilla are self-isolating at their home in Scotland, in Aberdeenshire. The Prince has coronavirus. Camilla has been tested for coronavirus, but does not have the disease at this stage, although she is self-isolating. That news coming from Clarence House. The Prince of Wales, of course, has his own establishment in Scotland, including a house he received from the former Queen Mother. Well, the Prince of Wales has tested positive for coronavirus. This is a statement from his spokesman at Clarence House. He has been displaying mild symptoms, but remains in good spirit and has been working from home throughout the last.
Cameron Walker, you've just received a statement.
I have. I've received a statement from Buckingham Palace, a Buckingham Palace spokesperson. It says His Majesty the King is so proud of Catherine for her courage in speaking as she did. Following their time in hospital together, of course, they were both at the London clinic receiving treatment. His Majesty has remained in the closest contact with his beloved daughter-in-law throughout the past weeks. Both their Majesties, the King and Queen, will continue to offer their love and support to the whole family through this difficult time. So that is a statement from a Buckingham Palace spokesperson, and I think this just shows the close relationship between His Majesty the King and I quote, beloved daughter-in-law, Catherine, who are both currently receiving treatment for cancer.
A desire and a plan to address the impact of climate change, and to recognise that the time for words has now moved to the time for action.
The green recovery represents an unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live and do business. There is hope that we can transform the situation, but I'm afraid we are literally at the last hour, and there is real urgency for action. We know now what we have to do to rescue the situation, rather than going on talking about it.
You know, we are seeing a rise in climate anxiety. You know, young people now are growing up where their futures are basically being threatened the whole time. It's very unnerving, and it's very, you know, anxiety-making. We need some of the world's greatest brains and minds fixed on trying to repair this planet, not trying to find the next place to go and live. It's been a hard road for him. My grandfather started off helping out WWF a long time ago with its nature work and biodiversity, and I think that my father's sort of progressed that on and talked about climate change a lot more very early on, before anyone else thought it was a topic. So yes, he's had a really rough ride on that, and I think, you know, he's been proven to have been well ahead of the curve, well beyond his time in warning about some of these dangers.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Climate change and biodiversity loss as two of the world's most dire and pressing threats simply cannot be solved without China. At COP26 in Glasgow and through China's presidency of COP15, the world has made some progress towards a net zero, biodiversity positive and sustainable future. But governments cannot achieve these goals alone. Industry must play a central role in our efforts to accelerate the green transition. Mobilizing finance will be crucial. The Sustainable Markets Initiative brings together the world's leading businesses to collaborate and invest in the future. Every possible success with fruitful deliberations. The future of humanity, the entire natural world on which we utterly rely for all economic activity, and civilization itself depend on an ever more urgent.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the midst of a crisis that is now, I hope, well understood. Global warming, climate change, and the devastating loss of biodiversity are the greatest threats humanity has ever faced, and one largely of our own creation. Do we want to go down in history as the people who did nothing to bring the world back from the brink in time to restore the balance when we could have done? I don't want to. And just think for a moment, what good is all the extra wealth in the world gained from business as usual if you can do nothing with it except watch it burn in catastrophic conditions? This is why I need your help, your ingenuity and your practical skills to ensure that the private sector leads the world out of the approaching catastrophe into which we have engineered ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have a seat at the table, as this must be the year that we put ourselves on the right track. Everything I've tried to do and urge over the past 50 years has been done with our children and grandchildren in mind, because I did not want to be accused by them of doing nothing except prevaricate and deny the problem. Now, of course, they are accusing us of exactly that. So put yourselves in their position, ladies and gentlemen. We simply cannot waste any more time. The only limit is our willingness to act. And the time to act is now.
At this late stage, I can see no other way forward but to call for a Marshall-like plan for nature, people and planet. Having been at this now for well over 40 years, I have long observed that people tend not to act until there is a real crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, that crisis has been with us for far too many years, decried, denigrated and denied. At this late stage, I can see no other way forward but to call for a Marshall-like plan for nature, people and planet. With the planetary emergency so critical, with the permafrost melting in Siberia, for instance, producing dire effects on global warming, and with the Pantanal in Brazil being consumed by unprecedented numbers of fires, we can no longer go on like this, as if there was no tomorrow and no ultimate reckoning for our abuse of nature. So, what do?
Without doubt, we must now put ourselves on a warlike footing, approaching our action from the perspective of a military-style campaign. That way, working together, we can combat this most grave and urgent challenge. So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
I totally understand the frustration. The difficulty is, how do you direct that frustration in a way that is more constructive rather than destructive? So, I mean, the point is that people should really notice how despairing so many young are. For years, I haven't eaten meat and fish on 2 days a week, and I don't eat dairy products on 1 day a week. Now, I mean, that's one way to do it.
World leaders are gathering in Glasgow to talk about the kind of issues that you were...
Yeah, but they just talk. And the problem is to get action on the ground.
Can I say, you sound a little bit like Greta Thunberg, who said exactly the same thing. She said it's all, I don't know, you probably saw, she said it's all blah, blah, blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. I mean, do you feel that she's kind of onto something?
Of course. But I mean, why do you think I've done all this for all these years? Because I'm minded about, and always have done, the next generation.
We've got to hang on to optimism and hope, because it is the biggest driver of change. It is the biggest driver of innovation. I think if I can reach more investors and people see this isn't a philanthropic thing, we're not doing this to be philanthropic, we're doing this because the vast majority of these solutions are commercially viable. I think that will help people realise and understand that this has got legs of its own and the momentum will take it forwards.
How many of us feel battered, helpless, in the face of the seemingly endless stream of disasters and devastation? I understand. This has been a painful year in a painful decade. We're living through a pandemic that continues to ravage communities in every corner of the globe. Climate change wreaking havoc on our planet, with the most vulnerable suffering most of all. The few weaponizing lies and disinformation at the expense of the many. And from the horrific war in Ukraine to the rolling back of constitutional rights here in the United States, we are witnessing a global assault on democracy and freedom.
This is the decisive decade. If we do nothing, by 2030, we will be speeding towards increasingly devastating planetary and humanitarian crises as a result of our changing climate. Or, if we act now, we will be on a path towards a repaired and regenerated planet that will flourish for generations to come. And this year, we want to focus on tipping points that can accelerate change. Sectors like transportation, fashion, and construction. We want to see solutions led by women and indigenous peoples, using cutting-edge technology and new financial models which value nature. And finally, we're always on the lookout for wildcards,
out-of-the-box solutions that have transformative potential. These are my particular favourites. Our future is not yet set, and while the task ahead is great, we still have the ability to repair our planet and create a better world.
To coin Christiana Figueres' phrase, a stubborn optimist, I think this is sort of where I'm feeling quite like I'm at the moment.
Maybe that's what I am.
Yeah. She's given me a lot of hope that this can happen, and I believe it, and I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It is really inspiring. It's really hopeful, and I do believe we can make huge strides. It's the same way the Earthshot to me is a team game. And as you know, Kate, I said that to Price Council members, all of you, it's everyone doing their bit and helping and supporting. What we're trying to do is it's all of us in it together. In the same collective spirit, it would be great if we could tackle climate change and the environment. To coin Christiana Figueres' phrase, a stubborn optimist, I think this is sort of where I'm feeling quite like I'm at the moment.
Maybe that's what I am. Yeah.
She's given me a lot of hope that this can happen, and I believe it, and I'm seeing it with my own eyes. It is really inspiring. It's really hopeful, and I do believe we can make huge strides. It's the same way the Earthshot to me is a team game. And as you know, Kate, I said that to Price Council members, all of you, it's everyone doing their bit and helping and supporting. What we're trying to do is.
I bet everyone's like, I'm not Does it seem quite dramatic right now? Is it being a little bit hacked up, do you think? By the way, Chief Judge Game is just running for it. Sorry. So we're keeping an eye on that. So do tell us if we get stopped.